In the last section, we did a big review of all the code we just wrote for our chocolate cake factory. Now, at this point in time, you might be a little bit confused about the stream stuff because you might be thinking, Stephen, we just wrote out a lot of code to essentially check to see that we are passing in a string of chocolate to like some thing right here. In other words, you might be thinking that we could have just implemented all this stream stuff by instead doing something like var order equals new order with chocolate, and then writing out something like if order.type equals chocolate, then create a new cake. Well, yeah, this kind of more or less is what we just wrote out with all of that very laborious code. This is really the core of what we just did. So the example we just did was really just meant as an illustration. So I now want to give you a more practical example of how we can do some things with streams that are otherwise very challenging to do without them. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to first get started by highlighting all the code inside of Dartpad. Now, if you want to back up this code, you can paste this or copy this all out and save it somewhere else. Otherwise, we're going to delete all this and start from scratch. So I want to create a new little application using streams. And we're going to largely just kind of write out the code for this, and then we'll talk about what it's all doing. Okay, so I kind of just write out the code first, and we'll talk about what it's doing. So inside of Dartpad, we're not only limited to writing out Dart code, we can actually write HTML inside of here as well, and then manipulate that HTML with Dart. So for this next example, I'm going to flip over to the HTML section, and I'm going to write out a button tag over here. And I'm going to give the button tag the text click me, like so. So now I should be able to go over to the right-hand side up here, click on HTML output, and I'll see that button appear. So we can now write some Dart code that's going to find this HTML button and allow us to kind of interact with it in some fashion. I'm going to flip back over to the Dart tab, and then I'm going to import a standard module from Dart that will allow us to interact with this button. So at the top, I'm going to do Dart::HTML, like so. I'll then define my main function. And then inside the main function, I'm going to write a little snippet of code to find this button and give us an object that represents the button itself. So to do so, I'll do final button element. I'll call the variable button. And I'm going to get access to that button by writing out query selector and then pass in button like so. Okay, so now we're going to create a little game here. Okay, we're going to create a game. The game is going to be you have to click this button at least once a second. So you see me, you can kind of see the graphic on the button. I'm clicking it, clicking it. If I ever stop clicking the button for 1 second, then we're going to print out a message that says you lose the game. All right, that's going to be the game we're going to put together, and we're going to make it using streams. So again, we're going to kind of just write out the code for this, and we'll talk about what it's doing. So I'm going to say button.onClick. On that, I'm going to chain on .timeout. That's going to be a function. As the first argument, I'm going to pass in new duration with seconds equal to 1, like so. And then as the second argument, I'll put in a named parameter of onTimeout. That's going to be another function that gets called with a sync. And I'll call sync.addError with too slow. Or we could do what I said, which was you lost. Then after that, I'm going to add on a .listen. As the first argument, I'm going to pass in an empty function that gets called with some piece of data or event. We're not going to do anything with that, so I'm just going to place the curly braces right there like so. And then underneath it, I'll do onError. That's going to be called with a error message, specifically this you lost message right here. And inside there, I'm just going to print out that error, just as we did before. Okay, so now I'm going to run this, and we're going to try playing this game, and we'll talk about what all this code does and why streams are so important to create a game like this. Okay, so now if I go over to console, you'll notice that it might say you lost right at the start. That's totally fine. I'm going to try clicking on the button, and I'm going to click it for some number of seconds, and then you'll notice that when I stop clicking it, we're going to see another message of you lost. Okay, so I'm going to click, still clicking. Still clicking, still going. Now I'm going to stop right now. And after 1 second, you see that little dot right there. And so if I go back over, we see the message, you lost. So clearly, this code right here implements this neat little game, but the code might not be super clear. So let's take a quick pause right here. We'll come back, talk about how this code is working, and then we'll talk about why creating this game by using streams is so much easier than trying to write out normal code that you might be used to build a game like this. So quick break, and I'll see you in just a minute.